There we go. There, I see it.
There we go.
Yay. All right. Hey, we're live. Welcome, everybody. This is the celebrating the diversity in Star Wars panel. My name is Victor Aragon. I am the co-creator of Fandads.com. Really quick, Fandads.com is, we've been running for 10 years in Chicago, based on the Chicagoland area. What we do is we write about video games, comics, movies, and toys, and how we share that love with our children. So bear enough. You know what a fanboy is? Now you know what a fandad is. With me, I got three amazing panelists that we're going to talk about this. So we're going to go around, introduce each other, and then we're going to get right into this. All right? So I don't know which way to point. So who wants to take it?
I'll go next then. My name's Elliott Serrano. I'm right next to you up here. So my name's Elliott Serrano. And I am if you're from Chicago, you would know me as Chicago's King of Geeks. Didn't give myself that title. That title was given to me by friends in the Chicago media. I have been covering pop culture and geek media in the city of Chicago for about 10 years. Started out as a writer and managing editor for Comics Waiting Room. Co-hosted a show on YouTube called Comic Culture Warrior. From that came an appearance in the controversial documentary The People versus George Lucas. I'm actually in that. That's why I have an IMDb page. Went on to write for the Chicago Red Eye and other publications like Playboy.com. Covering, again, geek topics, pop culture, and anything that goes on in the city of Chicago. Whether it may be C2E2, Wizard World Chicago, Star Wars Celebration that we had here just a couple years ago and was a real blast. I love covering it, and of course, I myself am Hispanic. I'm Puerto Rican, and just love the advances in diversity in Star Wars. And I also love the fact that our two fellow panelists here are from Sistas with Sabers. Let me pass it off to Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia with Sistas with Sabers. I don't have a quite as detailed or not a lengthy resume as you, Elliott. So I just I'm here with Raven from the podcast, and I'm glad to be here.
And I guess that passes it over to me. Hi, I'm Raven, also from Sisters with Sabers, and we are really excited to be here, really pleased to be asked, and so just really excited to get into it and be a part of this.
Cool. Just a quick reminder to everybody watching, if you can donate, click that diamond V. Everything that we're collecting today is going to Make-A-Wish in the greater Los Angeles area. So anything you can donate, $1, $2, $10, $50, whatever you can, will be awesome. So let's start this off. I mean, the panel is celebrating diversity in Star Wars, but before we ask all of you one quick question, and it's, who was the first character you connected with in Star Wars? For me, I'm going to say, obviously, it was Luke. I saw the first Star Wars when it was called Episode 4, Not the New Hope, when I was 5 years old, so I'm dating myself. But when I saw it, I mean, I kind of connected with him because of where I grew up in, the neighborhood I was in, and I knew there was something bigger out there, but I was trying to see how I can get there. And obviously there was like no old sage in my neighborhood that was going to, show me the ways of getting out of my neighborhood. But I basically would go to, I went to school, I stayed on the right path, and I was like, little by little, I know this is going to help me out. But for those of you watching, before we saw someone that looked like us on the screen, who was that person that you connected with when you first saw a Star Wars movie?
I would say that mine was Padme, since that was like the trilogy I grew up with was the prequel trilogy. So when I first saw Padme, I loved her, and I'd always would play with my brothers and sisters and pretend I was her in all her different outfits, and that really connected me with her. So yeah.
I think for me, it was also Luke. for a slightly different reason. I found him to be very hopeful, very clear in, good as, the white hats, bad as the black hats, and good always wins. And, bad things, can't succeed. It doesn't work that way. I loved that youth and inexperience he had initially. And when I was a kid, it was something I felt, and as an adult, it's something I aspire to.
I mean, I don't mean to sound cliche, but, I'm going to throw that in too. If I speak honestly about who I connected with the most would be Luke, although it's interesting that I connected him more readily by the time in Empire Strikes Back, because I think he was really more of a realized character by that point. And what I really connected with in him was his idealism. And it's something that, even now, it's still something that really, it drives me, because I look at all the characters that I look up to the most and who inspire me the most. It's the idealistic ones. That's why, like Mark Hamill is a huge hero of mine, because he believes so much in idealism in his own life as well as in the characters he portrays. That's why Christopher Reeve will always be the best Superman for me, because again, driving the idealism and inspiring others, and any characters that are idealistic. I mean, I've been binge watching The West Wing, for the past few weeks, because I just need that idealism. So yes, Luke is my guy, because, my boy, just like you, like you said, Raven, things get really dark. You need someone to help you look towards light.
Mm-hmm. Like, definitely. Yeah, the same thing, like you're saying, because when I grew up in, kind of a bad neighborhood, but yet just seeing Luke just wanting that. And then he was just, I guess, I wouldn't want to say whiny at times, but I mean, no matter, you have that.
No, he was whiny.
He was, but I mean, you I guess you need that sometimes just to get that kick in the butt later. Like, you can't always complain about what's around you. You got to go out there and do something about it. You can't just be, waiting for things to happen for you. And I think by seeing that, and like what Elliott said, when I know he's got something to say, I could tell by his face. But by the time I saw him in Empire, yeah, I kind of got that. I'm like, okay, he's getting a little bit more to be an adult now. Now he knows what his path is. But by the time he got into Jedi, it was like, all right, now he's doing what he needs to do. Now he knows his path. But then obviously, people will say something about him later on in the movies, but that's not here or there right now. Elliott, go ahead before you explode.
Oh, no, it's just back to the thing about Luke. See, Luke in episode 4, I'm like you, Victor, I remember when it was just episode 4. No, I take it back. I remember when it didn't have the episode 4. It was just the crawl. Yeah.
It was just Star Wars.
I mean, come on. When he introduces himself to Princess Leia, "Hi, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you." Never in a million years will that line work anywhere else. Think about a Prison Break movie.
Absolutely.
Rescue. I've always wanted to, hey, I'm so-and-so. That's one of my favorite bits in, remember the show Alias, Jennifer Garner's old show where she was the spy? Mm-hmm. And there was the dude, the dorky dude who was like was SD6's Q that made all their weapons and gadgets and stuff. And there was a time when he actually had to help her and rescue her. And right before they're about to swing away from something, he goes, "Look, I've always wanted to say this." And he goes to her, "Hi, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you." And 1,000 geek boys, nerds, high-fived the reference and said, nowhere else will that ever work. I mean, I would love to try that in a bar one day, walk up to a guy and go, "Hi, I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you from being lonely," and see how that works.
It's not only that's the only time it works. It's also the only character that could say it, where the reaction is what her reaction is, where you're just like, what? Because he says it so honestly, because he's not saying, "I'm here to rescue you. I'm a hero." He's like, We're going to go from point A to point B and to point C. And hi, I'm point B and I'm going to take you to C. And like, he's not even, comprehending it. He's just saying that this is the fact. I'm the guy that's here to rescue you. It's just kind of like,
he's not trying to be a badass or anything. That's Han Solo.
No.
He's like,
no, he's just calling out what he's doing. He's like, this is who I am and this is why I'm here. And, by all means, here's my card.
Solo probably would have just leaned against the door.
I think, though, for me,
let's go.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I know for me, Luke became much more identifiable when he was in Return of the Jedi, because for me at that age, I had learned and experienced the world and gone through a few things, and I understood how you could still be that incredibly good human being, that good person, to your core, and still understand that those demons exist and that dark side, exists within you. And even you being the best that you can be might have a moment where you slip. And so he became more identifiable when he had those moments where he wasn't living up to the, oh my gosh, I'm the Boy Scout kind of persona. But in the end, he made the right choice. And so he was still the Boy Scout. It was more like he got his church clothes dirty rather than he burned the church down. There was a distinct difference between how bad he screwed up and how bad he could have screwed up. Okay, maybe that was a bad example. You know what I meant, though?
Got his church clothes dirty. I was like, oh, Mom would have gotten all over me if my church clothes.
It was an analogy. I swear to gosh, you guys.
No, I can't do that.
I'm gonna go home now.
I love Chris R. Broaxian said that Lord Vader was the one he felt the kinship with because of James Earl Jones's voice. Because when you hear James Earl Jones's voice, he's not only black in appearance, but that's his voice, that timbre, that he's like, you can hear a very powerful black man speaking, which is something that I remember as a kid, that the voice of Vader, I could not reconcile that David Prowse was the guy in the costume by hearing the voice of James Earl Jones. I got, no, David Prowse is like a white English dude. That's not a white English dude,
I couldn't get past the leather pants.
Oh, well, I guess I'm not showing you what I'm wearing now.
Okay.
Picture's like, oh, God.
Segue to the next question with that. Oh, look at Han Solo right there. All right, so we kind of talked about who we first identified with when we saw the Star Wars movie. Now, since we are talking about diversity in the Star Wars movies, how did you feel when you saw the first character that looked like you on the screen? Elliott and I kind of talked about this last time, but I mean, for me, the first person that I actually saw would have been Jimmy Smits, and that wasn't until Attack of the Clones. By then, I was 28. So for me, seeing him, I was like, the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh, look, it's Cifuentes from LA Law. But it didn't like really connect with me that, okay, there's a Aladdin in the Star Wars universe. But like now that I think about it, I'm like, if I was maybe younger and saw it, maybe it would have affected how I guess love the trilogies. But I still love them. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I still love every single movie of them, even the ones that people don't like. But I think if I would have seen him when I was younger, it might have just like, affected me more. Maybe made me feel more a part of it than instead of someone just standing on the side watching the series going on. Maybe feel like, okay, I can be Bail Organa. I can be from Alderaan. Maybe that's where all the Hispanics were from. I don't know. But, it made me feel more like connected to it if I would have seen that when I was smaller. But for you guys, what was that first character that you I'm using my hands a lot. But what was that first character that you saw yourself in and connected to?
Olivia?
Oh, God. I needed a second to think about that.
Well, I know you said Padme before, but, there are, like, again, to the bit, like, who do you see yourself in?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a very weird question. Like my dad just played all the movies in front of me. So I kind of like picked little parts of many people because I didn't have someone that I directly related to. Like I pointed and was like, that's me. When we like play our imaginary games with my brothers and stuff, we would pick characters. And so I didn't have like the one character I knew looked like me. So I'd kind of like pick the one parts I liked of all the other characters and stuff and made my own. But I don't know. I have to think about it. Like I have to think about it a little longer because it changes it changes for me.
Yep.
I will say for me, you can look at Jimmy Smits from when he was introduced in the prequel trilogy. That's not the time I really felt a connection, though. I'll be honest. It was something, he is a Latin man. I mean, I kept saying, oh, it's Matthew Santos from The West Wing. So that was my thing. But when the first time I really connected with someone who I felt was like, boom, this is like a part of me in Star Wars Rebels, Kanan Jairus, voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr. I grew up loving Freddie Prinze. I remember watching when I was really young, really, really young. My dad watched Chico and the Man with a Freddie Prinze, who was, if you were Puerto Rican, and this was, the guy, he was the breakout star in and that was the guy you looked up to. There were two folks. It was Freddie Prinze and Jose Feliciano. Because Freddie Prinze had comedy on television, and Jose Feliciano you heard around Christmas every year because not only was he well known, but everyone played his Spanish version of the Christmas song, right? So then knowing that Kanan Jairus is voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr., it's like, wow, there are Puerto Ricans in Star Wars now. It's like, this is so cool. That's probably the first time I made a complete connection to a Star Wars character, because also too he was a Jedi. Bail Organa was so reactive, at least until Rogue One. Rogue One, he seemed more of a force as opposed to in the prequels where he's like, I'm sorry, Victor. I'm not trying to, diss, your love of.
It's not like I have posters of him on my wall or anything. But yeah,
I love Bail too. I love Bail Organa too, though.
Yeah, he's great. But Bail Organa seems like a kid killed right in front of him, and then the stormtroopers go, "Get out, move along," and he goes, "Okay," and he just leaves. I'm like, dude, So, the bit with and because so much happens with Kanan Jarrus in Star Wars Rebels, and it's about family, and it's about he's like the big brother to this boy, and it's like I've been a big brother all my life, and there were just so many things there that made it was my real connection there.
Mine was very early, actually, because it was in Empire Strikes Back. I, of course, back then didn't know I wasn't supposed to identify with Billy Dee Williams. I totally did. He reminded me very much of something my mother always tried to teach me. And I was very familiar with him at that point. In my house, everybody was familiar that was popular. So I was really familiar with him. And when he was there, I was just like, oh, there he is. But I think for me, that's one of the most interesting parts about these conversations is because I deal with my representation issues a little bit differently than most people. I grew up singularly the only person like me within miles. So I was used to not being represented anywhere. I was used to being the only one like me in the room. I was used to the fact that people would be, oh my gosh, you're the first person I've ever met, who isn't white. And so I was used to being the only one. I was used to not being represented. And I always just was taught by my parents that if there wasn't somebody that looked like me in the room, it was because they hadn't met me yet. And so when you meet Billy Dee Williams for the first time in Empire Strikes Back, and the way that he handles himself, clearly dealing with Han, his good friend, and this woman who just happens to be there, you know, his attitude, it feels very familiar to me, because it's just kind of like, yeah, I'm here. What? I'm going to hit on your girl too. What? Like, what is anybody going to do about it? And again, and I brought this up on our podcast and we've talked about it, but one of my favorite things about characters like Lando Calrissian and Finn and so many other characters, when did they ever point out that Finn was black? They never did. They never said a word about it. And the same thing goes for Lando Calrissian. They never pointed it out in the movie. Nobody said, oh, hey, you know, you're different. They just kind of went with it because everybody's different. You've got people with, you know, devil horns and, you know, all those other things. So I don't know, that for me, it was like, yeah, okay, there's people like me somewhere in there somewhere, but I always just assume that there are. I just can't see them all the time.
Yeah. I thought about the question a little more. And I want to say that like the first person I really like identified with like was like either Ahsoka, like just for her character, but like as far as looks like me, I really did not ever have that moment where I'm like, oh, like she's sick, like I want to cosplay as her, and probably until I saw Enfys Nest, because it's just I never had that moment like with anyone else. Like I mean I could cosplay as other people, but it's like I have to change a lot of part of myself to do it. But it's like with Enfys Nest, it's like I just need to put some highlights in my hair and I could probably just be her. And like that was so cool to me, and like some cool armor, and like that's really powerful to me. So yeah, sorry for my delayed answer. I have to think about these things.
Eventually.
No, it was a good answer. Good answer.
At least you didn't wait till the end of the panel to finally answer it.
Yeah.
Remember that question you asked?
We might have one of those questions. I probably will do that.
Yeah, I have an answer for that first question. Hold on a second. What was it?
Let
again?
me refer to my notes real quick.
Yeah.
The thing I'm
Go ahead,
looking at the chat messages too, and I think it's including representation. We can also point out that it's not just how we look, but you know, aspects of those characters that we feel reflect us. And Alia Morgaine says, or forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, says C-3PO was the most relatable to me as from a mental health aspect. He's anxious and a worrywart, and isn't it great to see all these heroes on this grand adventure? And I know if that happened to me, I'd be like C-3PO going, "We're doomed!" You know, you're flying through you're flying through an asteroid field and stuff's bouncing all around you, and you think you're going to crash. I'm not going to be like Han Solo, Mr. Cool, I'm flying through an asteroid field to show off for the girl. You know, I'd be in the back seat saying, "Dude, you're going to kill us!" You know, so. Oh, no.
I think that's true though. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be a you know, we look like each other thing, or, you know, our cultures are the same, it doesn't always have to be that. You can feel represented by somebody who looks nothing like you, but, you know, has some other commonality. I know for me, you know, I'm old, of course, but when I was, you know, a young girl, you know, my big idol was Julia Roberts. And no, I don't look like Julia Roberts, but I do have an obnoxiously loud laugh and really big teeth. So I can go with that. And that was honestly how I thought of it. I was like 13. I'm like, listen, there's nobody that looks like me in magazines. So I'm going to have to give up on people that look like me. So now I'm just going to have to find other things that we have in common. And if you want to be with somebody who laughs really loud, me and Julia, we got you.
But I also saw on the message here, someone talked about Dr. Afra.
Dr. Afra.
I have no clue who the character is, and I've been hearing
she's
people.
Awesome.
I've been hearing a lot of people talk about her, so I went out and I picked up one of these because I have to.
There you go.
I read it. Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I'm like, I gotta read this. I gotta figure it out. And then because that's the thing. There's so many characters out there that we can all relate to, or like you said, we don't even have to look like them. Just something. There's little bits of each character that you could say that's you.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I don't relate to Luke in any way, like as a person. Like we're not alike, so I wouldn't say I'm like Luke in any way. I identify with him on a level, but we're not like at all. I'm much more of a Kylo Ren.
And on that note, we won't get Raven mad today.
Good idea.
I see patricide in her future.
Just a smidge. Hey, you don't know my dad. It's entirely possible.
Look, you're gonna love Dr. Aphra, Victor. Kieran Gillen. I don't know what issue that is you picked up. He starts off
book 1. I think it's book 1.
Yeah, the very first appearance of Dr. Aphra is a homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark. She's like a space archaeologist, and I know Kieran Gillen wrote it, and Salvador LaRocca was doing the art for the longest time. He was incredible. That was before he transitioned over to the main title to Star Wars there in the beginning. So yeah, great. One of the great canon characters to not yet appear in any of the other Star Wars properties, like Thrawn. For the longest time, we only knew him from the books, and then they brought him into Rebels. Yeah. So I'm curious to see where Aphra shows up, like if maybe in one of the cartoons or possibly one of the movies.
Okay. Good. I thought of something. What Raven said something earlier, how like that she couldn't find anyone that looked like her, so just said forget it, and I'm just gonna pick someone. But here's where I'm gonna go with that. So imagine, I guess you could say, well, nowadays, because our kids or my kids are able to see someone, no matter what movie they see, they're able to find someone that looks like themselves. So if these movies were to just come out right now, like first A New Hope, obviously everybody would maybe gravitate to Luke, gravitate to Han, or to Leia. But what I'm trying to figure out is, like, imagine if you were this young when you first saw the movies, and if you had that mentality, like, I can't connect with anyone in this, so forget it. I'm not going to even watch these. Or I'm going to keep watching this to see where I can fit in. Like, how would that, I guess, affect your, I guess, not love or the fandom of Star Wars, and then the lack, I guess, of diversity back then, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
I mean,
I don't have an answer though.
Well, I can tell you. I mean, that's you can kind of see what's happened with the sequel trilogy, because I could tell when they released those movies, they were looking for that formula. Let's cast a trio like Han, Luke, and Leia. It was going to be Finn, Poe, and Rey. Okay, we're going to take the archetypes of Han, Luke, and Leia. We're going to shuffle it a bit. Okay, so Finn has more of the earnestness of Luke that Luke had in A New Hope and Empire. But he's not going to take that road to becoming a Jedi, or he could have, but they decided to shuffle it off to the side. But we're going to do the switch. And then, but Rey is going to, there was like the red herring they put out there, even during all I remember for the promotion for the Force Awakens, they kept saying, they showed Finn holding the lightsaber and all that. So you kept thinking, oh, he's going to be the Jedi of the trio. No, it turns out to be Rey, So Rey is like a reverse of the Prince, right? But Poe is straight up Han Solo. I mean, straight through. He's just the cool pilot, best pilot guy. So they didn't really shuffle him too much, his character too much, except make him more like a military guy. Fine. But here's my thing. I've never connected with those three characters, even though like Poe and them are supposed to really represent me more. Like I connected to the original three, so like Han, Luke, and Leia, and I don't blame anybody for that, except for the writing of and the way the stories were put together for these characters, and how I felt. To me, they weren't really satisfying stories for me. Poe has kind of like a half arc that boom is kind of resolved at the end. Rey is always going like in the middle. She's always the best at what she can do, what she can be. She might hit a little bump in the road here and there, but she never really like takes a hit like Luke did in Empire, And Finn, all he does for 3 movies is shout, Rey, Rey, Rey. I'm like, dude, where's your arc?
He kind of does.
You know? So I never really could connect with them, even though these characters are put together to kind of like for me to see myself more in them, and I really never did.
You got something to say?
I'm sorry, did I? I'm sorry.
No, I'm waiting to see if anybody else has anything to say.
you said, and then Finn, you're like, and we had Finn for a few minutes, and we all thought he was going to be the Jedi, and I'm like, yeah, I have a big issue with that's a conversation for a different day.
Yeah, it's like they kept hinting at it. First in the advertising and all the promotion for the movies going up to it, and then in Rise of Skywalker, they just Finn was force sensitive the whole time. He knew it. That's why so many things he was able to know all these things and be here and there, which is fine. It's great, but there was never any. I mean, the first two movies, he's pretty much a deserter who's trying to discover his heroism, and then you get to The Last Jedi, and it's funny. Finn never learns to trust Rey can take care of herself. He always feels like he needs to go after her to help her to rescue her. Mm-hmm. When it's really obvious she doesn't need it. If anything, she's got to rescue his ass half the time, So it's like, dude, grow a bit,
But that's not really a failing. That's not really a failing, because a lot of people still live in that mindset of I need to rescue. And sometimes it's just, let's be real here. Some people are old school, raised by people who are old school, and a girl needs a man to rescue her, save her, help her. Whereas I grew up with a mother who is the living embodiment of Princess Leia. So you can bet your butt I always learned that the only person rescuing me was me. But that's a different that's my experience. And I know a lot of women my age who are not like that. They're always looking for the knight in shining armor. And I'm like, I got my own armor, son. You just need to be able to keep up. Like that's my kind. But again, that's my experience because my mother is a little tiny Spitfire who does not understand that she should sometimes just, cool it. It's just not in her. So for me, I get what you're saying and I don't disagree, but I'm just saying there are people for whom that makes no real sense. It doesn't, that's not how they compute it. Maybe is the best way to say it. You know what I mean?
And it kind of felt that Finn, because Finn was force sensitive and, there's no Jedi order at that point. And I think he just felt connected and gravitated towards Rey. And he's like, I need to help her. I know I need to help her. And I kind of like that he was force sensitive and didn't have to be a Jedi because it did bring balance to the Force in that way that it's like you can be force sensitive and good at what you do, but you don't have to be a Jedi. And I thought it was cool, but it's like, don't give him a lightsaber, man, and then do that. I was really disappointed.
Get his ass beat.
Yeah, they dropped the ball there.
But Victor, was your question if the original trilogy dropped now, how do you think the fandom would look? Was that more like your question?
I'm trying to see if we were younger and it would have dropped now, how would we feel towards it?
Okay.
I mean,
it would make a difference for me. I don't think.
Yeah.
There is a point though to that, especially, one, kids of all ages are seeing the classic trilogy now anyway. I mean, their parents are introducing their kids to it, and of all races, creeds, colors, everyone who loves Star Wars are showing it to their kids, and it's really not such a big deal that, the three main characters are all white, I mean, I would think though with Star Wars is kind of unique in that where maybe if you had said we're going to do it over again, let's say Star Wars did not exist. Okay. And George Lucas decided to create Star Wars today. And he did it exactly like the way he did it then. He did it now, cast it the same way, mind you, probably with better special effects and all that, but that's all different. If you cast the same way, maybe it doesn't have the same reaction that it does now. Maybe because in my own head, I'm there. There's a change now in culture, in all of us. Of different. If you're of minority, it's like the whole. We were told, to sublimate our own culture and who we are into the greater American culture, which generally was white, and you found yourself in that, which I'm not saying is a terrible thing. It worked when you come from another country. I don't want to say assimilation as a bad word, but it's something that you're called on. If you want to be a part of the greater community, you need to assimilate a bit. But now we've advanced so far where it's like, assimilation doesn't mean giving up your culture, your heritage, who you look like. You don't necessarily have to find your, who you are in a white savior, in a white hero. There are heroes. There can be heroes that represent us too, and as a culture, especially with the way. And let's face it, it's not just culture; it's marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you want to get a black audience, casting black characters or having a black production crew and a black cast is boom. That's the way you appeal to a black audience. Same with the Hispanic audience. Bollywood is huge because it's all, it's Indian production crews, Indian casts, in everything. And it's there. And there's, again, if that's something that works in the marketing aspect, that's great. So to answer your question, Victor, I'm not sure if Star Wars is created today that it becomes the huge phenomenon that it turned into. With all that said, that makes sense.
It does, and
it did make sense.
And I was thinking that too. Like, I love Star Wars so much because if you were to sit there and watch all of them in a day, like, it does have a really interesting way of how it emulates the change in our culture. It truly is beautiful in that way. And I love the original trilogy, and I thought it was dope. Like, my dad always played it, and we'd always play around and act like Darth Vader to my dad. It was really funny and cute. But I still thought it was cool because it's like I loved spaceships and like outer space stuff. Like, that was so cool to me. So but today it's like, I don't know if it got released today, I don't know if it would do that well just because of the need now for more diversity.
I would just like to say, this is not going to be a popular statement, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because I'm old and I can do that.
I'm grown.
One thing, right? Not you, but just in general, representation is important. And to look at a movie, television, whatever media it is, and feel like you're represented is important. But if I were to say to you, I'm not watching that show because there's only white people on it. And that is the thing that bothers me, because I would tell you right now, Carrie Fisher would lose her mind if you told her I can't identify with her because she doesn't look like me. And not that anybody's saying that, but we have to remember too that it's our job as adults, as parents, as aunts, uncles, teachers, whatever, to teach our kids that it is important to be represented and it is important to see yourself. But at the same time, don't you dare ever think that because somebody like you isn't in the room, you can't go. And if we teach kids that you can't go somewhere because there's nobody like you there already, what are we really teaching them? Are we teaching them to be proud of who they are? Or are we teaching them that there's something wrong with them because they can't be the first? You're not going to tell Sally Ride you can't do that because you're a woman. She said, the hell with that, I'm going. And she did. And that has to be included in it. And in no way am I saying representation doesn't matter. Of course it matters. I'm on a podcast that is designed to make sure that people who normally don't get represented are getting represented and know that they are not alone in this fandom. But at the same time, we do have to teach our kids that if everybody else in the room doesn't look like you, that doesn't mean they don't want you. And that doesn't mean you should run away to the other, to someplace else. Go in there and hi everybody, I'm so-and-so and I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you. Let's go. We have to still teach that that's important too, because I can look up to Princess Leia and I don't care that she doesn't look anything like me. It never made it hard for me to think I could be her. I just didn't want to be because I already lived with her.
No,
So that's
that's an awesome point. Like I feel like I don't know where to go from now with that. We should just end the show with that one, because that's exactly.
I'm all full of hot takes, designed to make people go, well.
And there's another more points that are being brought up in the messages in the chat.
Good.
Looking for
one of us is
like
reading.
a queer representation. That's another bit. I mean, I know you're gonna go moving forward. You're gonna see more of that, with Star Wars.
Yep.
You're gonna see more of that in the main part, not just like
a background or something.
A background thing or a character in a book that we only know about in the books. I'm sure, as more and more gets developed, you're going to see more of that. Which there is more, we've already said it. There is more than just seeing who we are, like the color of our skin or whatever, our nationality. It's also, aspects of us, whether it be, our sexuality or, gender fluidity or, heck, we never bring up, are there other religions in Star Wars? We know about the Force, the Jedi, but, what
I am
about
a
others?
night sister.
We talk about... Olivia, the more I learn about you, the more
you should be a little scared.
You should be.
Raven knows that if I had to choose between Sith or Jedi, it'd probably be Sith.
Yeah. And she knows that I actually am a Sith. I just pretend.
Oh no, y'all some scary.
We're the Sith sisters of the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. We're the Sith sisters of the podcast. Breaking down barriers.
So
in the message, I saw someone talk about Rogue One, how that was the most diverse cast. And I remember seeing that story about I think it was like the grandfather that went with his nephew to see the movie. I think it was the grandfather and nephew. And that was the first time he heard someone speak in his accent on a Star Wars screen.
Oh yeah.
Bodhi, was it? No, it was who he played
Cassian.
He played Cassian Andor.
I can't think of the actor's name right now.
He had Cassian Andor. He had Bodhi Rook.
Oh yeah, Bodhi was like I would say Muslim American.
Yeah, but it's like you're there going, when in America, to be Muslim or be of Middle Eastern descent, automatically means we got to look out, make sure you're not carrying a bomb or something. It's like, seeing that. No, these are, they can be, anyone can be the good guys. You need to throw away all those terrible, demeaning stereotypes and accept each other, as part of family, as we can all be heroes together, not just
absolutely. And I think it's important too that when we talk about representation for everybody, no matter who the group is, that the people that are actually members of that group be a part of the discussion about how that representation is done. Because, I'm not a member of the LGBTQI community, so I can't say how it should be represented. That's not my call. I don't know what would make the most impact, what would feel the most, respectful, and yet at the same time giving the representation that's needed. And I mean, again, no matter who you're talking about, that's the case. We need to be talking to those people, those members of those communities, to help us decide how to do this representation when it comes to media and stuff like that. Because, I want to be represented as who I am, not as what someone else, thinks I want to be represented as. And I would expect, that I would feel the same way, toward anyone else, that I would want them to be represented the way they want to be represented, as opposed to my version, which is wholly uneducated,
Well, speaking of representation, let me, for a moment, I need to speak out on something which I think is an injustice in the Star Wars films, and that's really there are some folks in Star Wars and all of them right now, whether it's the prequels. I mean, I don't know so much prequels, but the classic trilogy and the sequels that really got short shrift, and that's Brits. It's like it seems like every bad guy, every member of the Empire has got.
Well, it's made by Americans.
And as a kid. I know. As a kid, I believed that all Brits were evil. It wasn't until I started watching Doctor Who that I realized, oh, wait a minute. Okay, maybe they're not. But it seems like if you had a British accent, you remember the evil empire, which made me think British people were, But then later on, you gotta learn about World War II.
Well, and I think that's,
and how they were actually good guys.
I think that's the media that we had too, because I mean, let's be realistic about what we saw in magazines, what we saw on television. Kids today, kids like me, watch television and they see people like themselves all the time. Like seriously, honey, if I turn off Soul Train, okay, and Solid Gold. There's nobody that looks like me on any television show I was watching. Never. There was nobody on television that looked like me. And so, it's very different now than it was then, So, I mean, I think that like what you're saying with the British thing, it's like it makes total sense when we were, young. But for kids nowadays, I like to think they're a little bit more worldly just because they can't help it, because we are such a global society. I think, you know what I mean? There are things that a 10-year-old could tell you about other countries right now. When I was 10 years old, I'd have been like, that's a country? It's entirely possible I wouldn't have known. And it wasn't because I was stupid. It was just because, how big was my world when you still had to be actually sitting at the telephone to catch the call.
Yeah.
We didn't have, back then we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have BBC. We didn't have, we had BBC. Yeah. Kids, the world of media wasn't as big as it is now, where
So the only people you might have seen were British people in Star Wars. Yeah.
Right, yeah, I had a moment.
Did you say Solid? I'm sorry. Did you say Solid Gold?
Yes.
The show?
Yes.
Danny Terrio or Adrian Zmed?
Adrian.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sorry, Olivia.
Okay.
It was an old people thing.
Saying that I had
a
I had a moment, like, I don't know if you guys saw the new Aladdin, but it's kind of off topic. I know it's not Star Wars, but I was watching it with my 4-year-old stepdaughter, and I cried because she said when she was listening to Princess Jasmine sing, she was going, "That's me." She calls me Ibby. She goes, "That's me, Ibby. That's me. I want to be her." And I just cried because, like, I never had that moment when I was little. And I mean, I probably did. Like, I did have, I'm younger, so I did have a little more diversity growing up, but I never saw a big screen movie. And I remember saying that to my mom or something like that. That made me cry. And it made me happy and hopeful for the future. We are doing better. There's work that needs to be done, but we are doing better, and the kids are receiving that message. And I think that is so beautiful. And it's why we're here having this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's awesome.
And I kind of think that's why it's important, because, growing up, it kind of helps to see something like that. I mean, so far, I haven't heard that from my kids. Like, they say, "Oh, that's me," or nothing. But it's you need that. They need that, because you got to let them know. Again, kind of off topic second, but when I took my daughter to see Captain Marvel, I mean, she was excited to see that, because it was a female. I mean, yeah, we had the Black Widow, but this was her first movie with just, a female superhero. And then same thing with The Force Awakens. She was just like, Rey is the main character. I'm like, yeah, Rey is the main character of this movie. There's no other people until they show up, but this is her story. Mm-hmm. So that kind of drew her in there. There's okay, I want to see this more. But I think this is why, it's important. And especially going back to Raven's point about not just including these characters, but having people from those communities have their input. Because if we look at some of the stuff we grew up watching, you could tell that wasn't written from somebody from those communities, because they all, I mean, I think of Monroe from, was it One Day at a Time, or one of those shows. I mean, he was a little bit too much, but I mean, you could tell that he wasn't written, and I wonder if he even had feedback on what he should say. or maybe he kept quiet because he wanted to keep his job. And I wonder if that happened too.
And back then, that's exactly what it was. He had to keep quiet.
Yeah, and then like with what's coming out now, I mean, I think Rose. I love the character of Rose. I wanted more of her. But I was, with all the feedback and the negativity she got, I wonder if she even was like, if she even said something about wanting to expand her role, what would have happened to her, And I mean, I think they didn't really show her as much in the last movie, but I mean,
I think everybody was, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think everyone, and when I say everyone, I mean the filmmakers, and I'm not exactly sure why, but considering I think I was in the same boat, I don't think anybody was prepared for what the backlash on that was going to be. I really don't think that any of us really had any idea just how much vitriol and hatred was simmering under the surface for people. And the second somebody made it okay to talk out loud that way, and suddenly the number of people that were saying and doing things just was, exponentially larger than anybody ever expected that it was. And I really think that when it came to, with Rose particularly, I personally feel that, that was not the plan. What ended up with her was not the plan. I just don't think that they had any clue that people were going to be so vicious and horrible and wretched and disgusting over a flippin' character in a damn movie because you have a problem. It's like, you know what? We can go outside and talk about this because I've had enough of this kind of stuff. If you don't like me because I'm a bad person, you go. Don't judge me on anything else. And I just really think that I think that's happening for a lot of people. I think that's part of the tiredness that we have, globally right now, but particularly here in the US, is people I think are just surprised at just how deep that stuff goes, even though we've experienced it on certain levels and, in the way society is and media and what we're talking about now, diversity and things. I don't know. I didn't think it was as bad as it is. I would never in a million years have believed it could be the way it is today. And it is, and it's terrifying. And I really, and again, I don't want to, answer anybody's question, but to me personally, that's how I felt it went, is that they were just not prepared. They had no idea it was going to be this bad.
I would speak, a couple of folks are in the yes. Messages. First, Matt from, Blue Bantha Milk has my back. He agrees. Brits are the bad guys.
Yes, and I LOL'd at him because I have a couple of Aussie friends and they all say that. So
yeah. And then Jeffrey, one of our admins, says, makes a good point that a lot of that vitriol and stuff it's amplified by social media.
Absolutely,
and the fact that someone who can have a minority opinion. They appear to be louder or have greater representation than they actually do because social media kind of acts in that weird way. It's like, it drives me nuts that you have people who will repeat the crap that bad people say. And that's the only way I ever hear it, is when people I respect and whose opinions I want to hear, just, they retweet or say, oh, well, this jerk said this. I'm like, well, why are you telling me
and
about
why
it?
are you giving them a platform? If you see somebody saying something crappy, don't spread it to other people. Don't spread it to other people.
And then you look at how people are. Look at how people are on social media, and look how people were with Kelly Tron in person at Star Wars Celebration, where she had an entire auditorium, a whole stadium full of people cheering for her. So people were like, everyone. No, it was that, again, that minority that they hate everything.
Yep.
Everything makes them angry. Nothing's good enough for them. They're the ones who go on YouTube, and when you see the picture of a puppy being rescued from a drain and growing up to be a happy dog, they're the ones who give it the thumbs down.
Yep.
Because they're sad, pitiful people, and that's how they.
And it's so upsetting because it's a minority. That it is. Any group of fools can sing loudly. It takes a controlled group of fools to sing softly. Okay, any jackarts can be out there making all sorts of noise, And that's the problem. Social media allows these fill in the blank here to say whatever they want to whoever they want without any kind of consequence or any kind of comeuppance on the other side. And by the way, if the Force exists and I come back as a Force ghost, every single one of them is going to pay. Rest assured. But to me, it's media is allowing people to be vicious and horrid, and other people, by being mad about it and trying to react to it, often bring it more to the fore. And what they don't realize is by trying to point out, shaming this person for saying this, you're forcing someone else who didn't want to see that, who's, blocked and muted to avoid seeing that, to have to see that hateful stuff. And I've just come to the point now where every time I see something hateful, I usually type something horrid in response and then I delete it. Because I'm not giving those people not one single second of my time. You can stay off my damn platform. Okay, if you want to be obnoxious, you go be obnoxious on someone else's time, honey. I've earned my space, and it's mine, and you don't get to come into it with your garbage. And I'm not putting garbage out there when it comes to me. I just look at it and go, well, you seem nice.
I don't want to, before I know the Brandon keeps saying we have time. We're running out of time, although we can go longer, but I want to make sure I make this point. First, Raven, yes, don't feed the trolls.
Yep.
That's the thing. Don't feed the trolls. But I think a thing that fans in general, probably most fans understand this. They do understand this. But for those who refuse to understand it, or the ones who say, they're the ones who are making clickbait articles about how Star Wars is woke now, and and the social
woke.
Justice warriors are doing that, blah blah blah. That it's understand that George Lucas created Star Wars so he could give us a new mythology.
Exactly.
Mythology that could help us learn, learn certain values, pass on certain values. And every mythology, going back to the very first mythologies, evolve, and the characters evolve, and the way the stories are told evolve.
Yep.
And they're not static. They don't stay what they are. And there can come a time when we understand, Star Wars, differently, or it's teaching different values than maybe it did in the very beginning, because that's what mythology is there for. Yep. So for people to say Star Wars can't be this, that, and the other, you can't cast people of color or this type, because that's just giving in to the SJWs and being woke, is denying mythology changes and its storytelling, and it's something that we all want to have. We want to have a healthy society, and we want to be able to tell stories to inform each other and to share together and to bring us together. Then it has to include everyone.
Yep, absolutely. And also, for those who are concerned that Star Wars has become woke and that we're becoming, SJWs, George is a big old hippie. Sorry, but
he's been woke.
Just throwing it out there.
He's been woke.
I mean, he didn't get woke last week. Okay.
Yeah.
He came into
he's always
woke.
Yeah.
He was woke before Star Wars. So it's like, it was always meant to be.
Star Wars never slept.
Thank you. They may not have done it right. And I know I saw a comment earlier about some odd choices that have been made, in trying to do representation and doing it terribly wrong. And I agree that's exactly why we need to have the people they're trying to represent in the room, so that they can say, yeah, no, because that's coded and coming off like the total wrong way. You don't want to do that, but you're not going to know that if you don't ask somebody who knows, And I think that that's what we have to all remember. Art almost always looks like, sounds like, and feels like the artist creating it. If you don't have any people of color in the room, if you don't have any women in the room, you don't have any trans people in the room, you're never going to get the right, what they're actually feeling, thinking, wanting you to say, because you're not them. That's part of being different from other people, is that we have to learn from each other. They need to be in the room. They need to be in the room.
Amen.
I feel like our admin just is giving us the 1 minute. And I feel like a bomb is going to go off. So
It Get
You need
mine.
a
I'm going to drop the
thermodetonator.
link to our.
Thermodetonator.
I'm going to drop the link to our High Republic petition in here, and you guys could check it out.
There you go.
I think it's relevant. So if anyone who's listening,
It's very
check it
relevant.
out.
All right, make sure.
But anyway,
I don't know.
So
No, I'm thinking
sorry.
like, I guess the last thing that we can ask each other is like, what can we do to make sure that we're promoting the diversity in this fandom, or how we can keep this going or keep this conversation going. Look at I'm here for it.
You could start a podcast specifically for a group that you know is being left out or has been left out previously. And that's all it takes. Somebody with a dream and a little bit of gumption. And by the way, that's not me. That would be Maria. But we love Maria. She wanted to make a difference. She wanted to reach out to people and not be a gatekeeper. She wanted to knock gatekeepers down and just push them out of the way and throw open the doors and say, come on in. Everybody needs to do that. No matter who you are, no matter what group you want to be a part of or want to say that, you belong to, whatever it is, reach out. There is somebody else out there like you. There's somebody else out there who doesn't know they're not alone. Reach out. And start your own podcast. Start your podcast for women of color. Start your podcast for who the heck ever. If it's people who wear blue shirts on Tuesdays, start your own group. That's what I say.
I would say, what I would add to that, yes, start your podcast, not just that, but also make sure you support creators that you feel represent you. It drives me nuts when I'll go back to social media, which doesn't always really reflect society or what the
it doesn't.
Are. But yeah, but I always see vitriol. People saying, "Oh, this sucks," or "That's bad," or again, the folks who say, "Well, why don't I have this representing me in Star Wars, or why don't I have this representing me in Star Trek, or why isn't such and such creator?" working on Star Wars or whatever. I'm like, well, the first thing you need to do is you need to support those creators. You need to support diverse creators and make it and lift them up and make it so that Lucasfilm, Marvel, all these companies cannot ignore them. I speaking as a freelancer myself who has done stuff for, other companies, unless someone's talking me up and editors and creators and companies see that people are talking about me, I'm not going to get noticed. I can only toot my horn so much. You need other folks to lift you up too. So I say queer creators, people of color, Asian, Black, Hispanic, gender fluid, trans creators. If you know them, promote them, push them, talk about them, tell your friends. This person's got a great book. You got to read it. And then by them getting noticed in the market, that's going to help them break into the higher echelons of being with the big boys that will then end up telling the stories that you hope you want in Star Wars and other properties.
Last thoughts, Olivia?
I think it's going to happen for everybody that way. I think the more we learn, the better we're going to be.
Well, our panel looks like our folks are starting to. They have to say goodbye. They're going. Walking. I see some folks. They're literally turning into Force ghosts in front of me.
They're legit throwing us out.
You know what?
Raven. No, I want to ask. You said you're going to come back as a Force ghost. Now, are you going to be a classic trilogy Force ghost where you basically just stand there and stare and creep us out, or will you be a sequel trilogy Force ghost where you can slap people in the head and grab stuff?
Well, I think for other people's safety, it's probably best that I be an original trilogy type.
So I guess
same.
Real quick, right now it's at over $1,000 for the Make-A-Wish. So that is awesome for everybody that's donated. $1,158 is what unless my eyes are bad, but if that's what if I'm reading it correctly. But
which is 10 million Shroot bucks. I think that was 10 million Shroot bucks.
10 million Shroot bucks.
10 million Shroot bucks. So it's a 1,058 just regular bucks, but 10 million Shroot bucks, which depends on where you are. If you want to go beet farming, shopping for beets, you might get more beets But I don't want to make those poor Make-A-Wish kids deal with beats. That wouldn't be fair.
No.
I guess I want to say,
Beats
everyone,
bad.
thank you to everybody that donated. Thank you guys for being here. Do you guys want to? I don't know. I feel like we can keep going, but I think we're pretty much done. Anything else? Oh, I keep going.
Oh, she says keep going.
Ray's
She says
saying
keep going.
She wants to keep going. I mean, we can keep going, but I don't want to be like, okay, like Raven has been that bartender where, and I have been that guy who sits at the bar for too long because I have this strange, I don't know why I get in my head that the bartender's really interested in hearing me talk more when she's just thinking, I want to go home, dude. I need to start flicking the lights on and off so
Mm-hmm. I have done that before. But generally I just start sweeping and accidentally on purpose pull the legs out from underneath your chair.
Oh. Well, that has happened. Oh, that was an accident. That wasn't an accident.
It wasn't.
In the bartender
it wasn't,
playbook.
No. It's in the bartender playbook. It's on page 7.
Olivia,
Right
what do you
before you learn to use a
cork.
corkscrew in people's heads.
What was that?
I want to hear Olivia put her pin on it. I want you tell me what's the thing that you feel. What's your stamp on it?
Oh, I'm
before we
just
all call it
saying,
a night?
I agree with you guys tremendously. Unity.
It's because I'm right. I know. I'm
Right.
I'm sage
Right.
and wise.
But unity
Why-
is so important, and solidarity. Like we all have our own individual experiences and our groups we identify with, but there's layers to our identities. And I think supporting each other will really help us be in touch with that. Also, if we don't identify, like just be an ally and validate those experiences for other people and support them. If someone wants to start a pod and they don't know how and they message you, don't reach out to them. Like, let's do this. Like, I can give you the resources, be a liaison for other people if you need to be like we need to help each other. Especially right now, we've always got to help each other. And, I know we get busy and we have our own kids, families, other stuff we're worrying about, our jobs, but at the end of the day, like we're people and we need to help each other. So if you can anyway help someone with just even advice, like just they're like, hey, like I had a bad day. Like I experienced, some weird shit at the store with some racist dude. Like, tell me about it. What happened? Just be an open ear for someone. I think that's so important. And just makes the community safer. And I think that's awesome to have in this fandom.
Agreed.
That's fine. All right.
Agreed.
I think on that, that's a great note to end on. I want to thank you guys for being here with me today, for helping me with
Thank
this.
you.
Elliott,
That went by really quick.
It went by. It flew, but I mean,
Sorry.
That's what she said.
and then that's where they cut it off.
Wait.
They cut
Phrasing?
the feed off at that point.
Kid friendly. Yeah,
I
thank
know
you.
our admin put in the messages where we could all be found, but just in case someone doesn't want to scroll through all that, Olivia and Raven at Sisters with Sabers podcast, right? And it's on. I found you guys on Spotify, but where?
Yes.
We're on Spotify, we're on Anchor, we're on Google Play, we're pretty much anywhere you listen to your podcasts, you can find us.
There it is again.
There's the
Oh,
link
thank
again.
you.
Thank you.
Tell your smart speaker, Alexa, play Sisters with Sabers podcast.
See, that's
Oh,
the way
it
to
didn't
do
hear
it.
me. All right.
No,
It's starting. My Alexa in the
Uh-oh.
kitchen heard me.
Elliott, you can be found at your About Me page.
Just find me at about.me/Elliott Serrano. That's ELLIOTTSERRANO. And there are links to everything. My social media, my columns, my Amazon author page, all
And
those
then
things.
I'm the co-host or co-creator of Fandads.com. We're everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. We still use Pinterest. YouTube.
They're
We're
everywhere.
taking over
They're
the
literally
world.
behind you right now at this very moment. Turn around. You're going to see them right there. Right
All you gotta
behind
do is just at Fandads and all those, and you can find us on there. Thank you guys for doing this again. This was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do another one like this next
So
year.
much
If
fun.
there's another Forcefest 2021, we could probably hopefully get a bigger panel and make more people.
Yay!
And then maybe one day we can do this in real life.
More
Yeah,
time.
and it would be great to do like something real. So thank you everybody again.
Yeah.
Bye, I guess.
Hey, thanks for admin. Thank you, Bryn. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
admins. You guys are great. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
everybody. Sorry if we